Good evening, family. Ruben, is this good? Am I coming across clear? Sounds good. Video's good. Awesome. Thumbs up, everybody. Man, it seems like we were just together. I missed y'all. Been looking forward to this, and yeah, my bride and I are on the beach down in on the Gulf in Florida, just kind of unplugged. But I had this one already set up ahead of time. So she knew that I was going to be doing this tonight, and I've been looking so forward to it. Sunday went well, I heard. I'm not sure if John Basilio is going to be on. Ruben, do you know if he's jumping on with us tonight?
He's not.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
he's
right, cool.
he's up at Pepperdine right now. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. But real quick, John, tell me, Ruben, tell me how it went. How did Sunday go with my buddy?
Well, maybe folks can chime in here on the chat, but
Nah, you just
I
real quick.
I thought it was awesome, and we're grateful for John and Migdalia coming through. I think God answered some prayers on their part as they shared a little bit about the Hope truck, the Hope Vibes truck that they're
Yeah.
working with. They didn't ask for funding, but we got several text messages after church from people that want to help and donate to that cause, which is, it's awesome when it comes from the overflow of just somebody's heart, So very excited for them. And they got to spend some great time with several people here in GLB Church. And I think what I appreciate the most about what John said is that we may be in different places in regards to 40 days of prayer and what day should we start or whatever the case may be, but that every day is a new day with God. Every day is a new day with God. And so I'm grateful for what he shared there. So GLB Church, go ahead
Amen.
and chime in on the chat there. What, about the Basilio's visit if you want to.
Now I just wanted to get a quick update, but I appreciate it. I know that you guys received them, and I love them so much. John is so important to me, and he's kind of the spiritual one in our little duo here. So I need him. But I'm glad that you guys got to be with them. His wife's amazing. Their family is great. But also Ruben, he just loves you, Marina, so much. They do. So thanks for taking such good care of them. So let's jump in. How are the steps going? We'll do a little, what we'll do each week is we'll kind of just do a little, there's going to have to be some jerk up, habits that maybe you're not serving you anymore. The old tricks, the old plays are not working as well anymore with whatever life has for you right now. And so these steps, I want to remind you, are a way, it's just a process that I came up for myself to be able to figure out what in the world happened when everything crashed. I was just like, let's start all over again. Let's just rebuild and see if I can find, what was missing. And that's what led to these steps. So I'm gonna see, you guys are 7 days in, I think, right? You should be right around there. A couple of you might be in a little different place, but each week I'm going to remind us just to start. Just today is today. Forget about yesterday. So if you've done this like heroically for the past week, and it's like, man, you are on it. You're journaling like crazy. Man, you're hitting your knees first thing in the morning. You're writing down impossible prayers. You got way too many prayers, man. You're doing all that. You got your eyes open. You're taking notes. You see God's fingerprints, man. You're taking steps towards your prayers. You're repenting of stuff quick, getting it out of the way. You're living in a space of gratitude. If anybody's there, I say, hey, man, I'm very impressed. Keep it going. Most of us probably are kind of in different places on this thing. It's like, man, this is new. I mean, I'm not used to doing new things. I'm going to do a whole lesson on called the mind of Christ, but not tonight. But I am going to go ahead and tease it a little bit. And I've told you about Uncle G. I created, when I started working with prisoners and then with kids, I wanted to create a way where I could teach basic brain science principles to kids, and then maybe people with limited education all the way up to, PhDs. And so I created these characters, and Uncle G is what I call my brain. Now, the reason I call him Uncle G, he's the original Google. I want you to try to remember life before Google. You know what I'm saying? How did we figure out anything? It's like Google is this, you don't even have to doubt it. Just you trust it. You just put the question in, push search, boom. All of a sudden, everything that's ever been written on a thing is there. The Uncle G is the original Google. All you've got to do is point him in the right direction. I mean, he's willing and able to find, discover, create, invent, patent. You know, he can build. I mean, he's just like this amazing super freak of a computer is not a big enough word. This amazing, possibly unlimited organ that is there, and God made it for us to serve us. And we're going to be finding as we go through this process, you might start learning that we are serving our brain more than the brain is serving us if we're not careful. He's the original Google, the original GPS. I mean, how in the world did I get anywhere? I don't know how I got anywhere. Certainly not on time. We kind of just guesstimated, man. It's about an hour away, Boulevard, whatever it was, and boom. And then all I got to do is listen to the lady's voice, just pay attention and take directions well. And so Uncle G's the original GPS, and that's why we're writing down our desires and the things that we're putting before God. It's like putting coordinates in a GPS. All you've got to do, and then we're going to start listening for the Spirit and watching for him to guide us toward the things. Delight yourself in me, and I'll grant you the desires of your heart. And so what are your desires? You know, what are your heartaches? What are your dreams? What are the things that you're petitioning God to help you with? The reason we write it down is one, it becomes real when I write it down. When I read something I've written, man, it gets out of my head and onto paper, and I'm like, whoa, it's real. This thing that I want, call it a goal, call it a dream, call it an impossible prayer. When you write it down and then look at what you wrote, there's power in it. He's the original GPS. He's the original Google. He's the original gangster if you don't pay attention to him, because he is going to do the same thing he did yesterday if you don't give him new information. For the next 40 days, we're giving him new information, a new way to look at things. You start your day on your knees, and it doesn't have to be more than a 6-7 second prayer. You can stay down there if you want to. But if you roll onto your knees, it is a new perspective for your brain. It's like, whoa, our first thinking moments, our first few moments of awareness, consciousness are going to be directed to God. That is fundamentally going to change your life if you're not careful. When you write down your prayers, man, the brain knows what it is to be looking for. If you review them every day, man, the prayers stay right in the front of your neocortex, right here. And it's where we discover things, we notice things, we recognize things. All of a sudden, out of there's the reticular activating system that allows you to notice things that are relevant. Well, you start writing your prayers down and reviewing them every day, and Uncle G, he knows what to start looking for. And in the same way that he'll get your attention to a new car that you're in the market to buy, whenever one's around you, he will start showing you, noticing things that are around you all the time that you might be missing. That's why these steps, right? And so I'm gonna be talking about Uncle G. He's a learning machine. He's a storyteller. Man, he's a chemist and a junkie. He's doing all these things, but let's just start with this. Today, he paid attention to everything you paid attention to, everything you watched, read, listened to, daydreamed about, every conversation you had, every word that came out of your mouth. Uncle G is paying attention to everything you do. And so today, what did you feed him? You know, Google's only as good as the input you give. If you put in a bad question, you'll get some bad results. Uncle G should be starting to learn some things. If you've given him 7 days of new steps, I'm going to hit my knees. I'm going to write down my prayer. I'm going to ask you this, and we're going to move into the lesson. Which of the steps after the first week is the toughest one for you? You might be like, dang, I keep forgetting to roll onto my knees. That's totally cool. Uncle G's been getting you out of bed the same way. All you got to do, though, is start giving him some new direction. I've been getting out of bed so long this way, there's no other way for me to get out of bed. That's the way my body gets out of bed. Uncle G's got that on lock. Is it hard for you to write down your impossible prayers? I'm going to give you one little question that will change your life. Just start asking yourself with no judgment, why? Just ask yourself why. And then don't bring a bunch of guilt and shame into it. It's like, man, how come I don't want to hit my knees in the morning? Is there something? What am I resisting? And then just don't judge it, sit with it. Man, why am I afraid to write down my possible prayers? What is it? Something's blocking me. What am I afraid of? Maybe I'm afraid that they're not going to come true. I'm afraid that I'm going to get my heart broken again. I'm afraid that, the things that I'm really, if I care again, I'm putting myself out there. And so I just don't want to write it down. That's cool, as long as you're aware of it. Man, why am I not willing to take a step towards something I'm asking God for? Why is that one a tough one? Journaling. What is it that's keeping me from journaling? It's just a good way to get a little conversation started. And you've got to just ask yourself why, and take away all the judgment and the shame and the things that we tend to dump on things. It's like, man, why don't I do this? And then you'll answer that question, because I'm not spiritual and I'm lazy and I'm selfish and I don't commit to anything. And all of a sudden you've got that same voice going on in the head. That's the voice we're trying to stop, interrupt. We're going to start a new conversation. And then let's do this. Remind yourself of what your one thing is. All right, you've got 10 impossible prayers. If you haven't made them yet, I want to encourage you to go ahead and be working on that. That's the meat of this thing. But what is your one thing that this is the thing that over the next 7 weeks, God, I want you to deal with this. It could be a relationship, and you're going into this 40 days saying, man, you've got to help me with my relationship with my son. I can't do anything. I'm out of answers. I can't. You got to do this. It could be your marriage. It could be your money. It could be your health. It could be a sin stronghold, a character, something that's got a hold of you. And you've always known, man, if I could have a breakthrough in this area, everything changes. The whole game changes. If I can have this right here, man, I want to encourage you, go ahead and let's just be honest. You don't have to talk to anybody about this. This thing is yours, man. Nobody needs to see this. If it's just like, no, baby, this is just me and God. I want you to respect one another. This can be a very sacred, private journey. If you want to talk about some things in here, but write them down and keep it under lock and key if you need to, just between you and God. But please don't go through the process of doing this whole thing and then leaving out the as they say, the pink elephant in the room, the thing that God knows. Man, let me help you with that. And as we said last week, it's going to be a whole lesson on this. Allow yourself to be weak. Allow yourself to love the parts of you that you've been fighting for so long. Those strongholds of unforgiveness, this part of me that just it owns me. I'm a slave to this part of my nature. It's like, go ahead and let that be weak. We're going to let him love that. We're going to shine light on that. We're going to heal that thing instead of just fighting it, man. Whatever I fight, I strengthen. Whatever I resist becomes stronger. Okay, tonight, we're going to look at the first question that Jesus was asked. Each week when we come together, after we've gone 7 days, so this is on day, right after day 7, on page 32, we're going to look at a question that was asked of Jesus from somebody that really wanted something. And they came to Jesus and said, Jesus, you've got to help me with this. And then he asked a question. And each week we're going to look at one of these powerful questions that Jesus asked. The first one is found in John 5. And just listen as I read it to you. Sometime later, Jesus went up to Jerusalem for one of the Jewish festivals. Now there is in Jerusalem near the sheep gate a pool, which in Aramaic is called Bethesda, and which is surrounded by 5 covered colonnades. Here a great number of disabled people used to lie, the blind, the lame, the paralyzed. One who was there had been there an invalid for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and learned that he had been in this condition for a long time, he asked him, do you want to get well? Sir, the invalid replied, I have no one to help me into the pool when the water is stirred. While I'm trying to get in, someone else goes down ahead of me. Then Jesus said to him, get up, pick up your mat and walk. At once the man was cured. He picked up his mat and walked. The day on which this took place was the Sabbath. And so the Jewish leader said to the man who had been healed, it's the Sabbath. The law forbids you to carry your mat. Jesus is drawn to his people again. And you're going to find Jesus is always drawn to the least. The least of these are his people. Jesus was poor. He had an unwed teenage mom. He experienced homelessness and incarceration and all the things. He was an illegal immigrant, man. He had to leave and run around, flee to Egypt and come back. There was a hit on him when he was a little boy. I mean, it's like Jesus was thrown into this world that we call the least of these, the ones that we feel sorry for. Jesus is drawn to them. And so here he goes to a place where a lot of them are put. You've got beggars and you've got invalids and those that have diseases and those that have, they're crippled or maybe demon possession. He's always paying attention. And it says, when he learned that this man had been there for 38 years, he said, and I used to look at this scripture and I'd be like, there must have been a lot of attitude that was put on that. Like, do you want to get well? Man, I just found out that you've been here 38 years. You telling me you can't get well in 38 years? When the water's stirred, the angels come, first one down, you tell me in 38 years you've never been number one? And kind of the vibe that I used to kind of feel. And I don't see it like that anymore. It's like Jesus learned he had been there for 38 years. And I think that he goes to him with an attitude of, this is your big day. 38 years, like there's excitement in Jesus, not frustration. Like, why haven't you dealt with this? It's like, are you willing to deal with this? There's a whole different energy there. It's like Jesus, I think, gets excited. Why can't you heal that yourself? Which a lot of times is what I felt like he felt towards me about my weaknesses, things I struggle with. He knows my weaknesses. He knows my tendencies. He knows the things that I feel bad about. He knows. And so this man knew. But I want you to notice the question that Jesus asked, it brings out the heart. All he said is, do you want to get well? That was it. And look what the man said. He said, but sir, I have no one to help me. Okay, that's an excuse. He's complaining. And when the water is stirred, I'm trying to get in. Somebody else goes ahead of me. So it's like complaining, blaming, making excuses. He didn't even believe he could get into the water. He just wasn't even into it anymore. It is what it is, man. This is my mess. At least I know, I understand the mess. And it's hard for us, I can't speak for you, but to look at this and go, what was wrong with the dude? I mean, why would he be willing to stay in that condition for so long when there was a solution? But I want you to think about what your thing is. What's your 38-year thing? Those of us have been around. I've been around the sun 58 times. Okay. I got 38-year-old things. Like, I've been that way for 38 years. And I can't do it. Why? Because every time I try, something else happens. And man, everybody else, it seems like he answers their prayers and not mine. And it's really not my fault. My dad was this way. And well, I used to be that way. But now, it's these sophisticated excuses. Maybe you don't have any, but I had a bunch of them. It's like, why can't I change? And then I had to create this, this story around why things were different for me. And see, this guy, he obviously had gotten comfortable in a situation where he didn't need to be comfortable. And this is his moment. He comes, and this, I'm telling you, it doesn't take a long time to change your life. Your life changes in a moment. It's how long does it take to get to your moment? And are you ready for your moment when it arrives? Jesus was standing, or at least he was kneeling face to face with this man, looking right into his arms. And then he asked a question that was so simple: do you want to get well? And he couldn't even answer the question. And Jesus didn't even make him. He goes, pick up your mat and walk. And the man stood up, picked up his mat, and he walked away. And all the religious people saw him and were critical. It's like the religious couldn't even see the power of God because they had been doing it their same way for so long. And their rules and their traditions and their rituals were so much more important to them than the Holy Spirit work of God, because they just witnessed a miracle. A man been down 38 years, and Jesus says, walk. And he stands up on new legs and he walks away. And the religious people can't even see God in it. And I need you to hear that, because the world will say we are those religious people. Man, we're serious about this book. We're serious about our prayer life. We're serious about our evangelism. We're serious about our tithing. We're serious about our discipling. We're serious about going to church. We're serious about seeking and saving the lost. We are serious about, okay, we're serious, right? You do things long enough, and if you're not careful, you get bound to the thing and not the giver of that thing. And that was the problem that Jesus had with the religious, is y'all are so tripped out on your Sabbath day that you don't see what my Father just did for this man. And it turns out neither did the man. Because if you read on, Jesus goes the next day into the temple courts, and who does he find? He finds the invalid that now has good legs, and he is doing something he ain't supposed to be doing. We don't know where he went. We don't know what he got into. We just know that Jesus was paying attention, and he found him and said, stop sinning, or something worse is going to happen to you, son. So, I mean, the question was a very good one. Do you want to get well? Well, what did wellness look like for this man? I mean, Jesus obviously did not. He's like, you don't even understand what I did. You wouldn't be up here doing what it is you're doing right now, hanging with whatever we're looking at. And he said, why do you think that I gave you your legs back? And so don't be too quick to say, yes, I want to get well. Yes, 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 now. I want to get well right now. Because he's going to say, are you sure? Wellness carries responsibility. Maybe Jesus wanted him to use his new legs to go and serve all those brothers and sisters down there at that colonnade. Maybe he's the one that should be going around now that he's got legs, helping people down to the water, putting together food drives for them, helping bandage the wounded. And now he's got a ministry. Jesus gave him back his legs. And now, man, he is the man. Now he's got a mission. He's got a purpose. But instead, he did whatever he'd been thinking about doing for all those 38 years. And he ran and he just got lost. So the things that you're going to write down, it's a good question to say, why? Man, I want you to heal my marriage. Why? That's a good question right there. Why? You know what my answer was? Because that woman has put up with hell, and she deserves to be loved right. She had never been loved right. And I had never loved anybody right. And I'm talking about all in. She, my wife, deserves to be loved and adored. She deserves to feel beautiful and desired. She deserves to be protected and feel safe and secure. She deserves that. And the fact that there were many, many years where she didn't feel that way, that's why I want him to heal my marriage. But why do you want? Because I want her to get all those things that she's never gotten. You know, this is not the first rodeo for either one of us. And she has never been loved right. And now she is. And so that's a big why for me. It's all about her. And I've never been in that space before. So you look at your impossible prayers and he says, do you want that? Yeah. Well, I want you to start thinking about what I'm going to get you to do with that thing. Okay. If you really want to be the good dad, you know what it's going to cost you? And you really want to be the good wife, the good friend, the good son, the good employee, the good earner, the whatever it is. I want to be healthy. Why? How's the world going to be better because you are now well? And what's the responsibility that comes with it? Now, I want to kind of switch gears for the second part of this thing. And I want to reread what I read to you. I don't know if I'm sure I did. But anyway, this is kind of a reoccurring theme, and it's in this Ephesians 3. For this reason, I kneel before the Father, from whom his whole family in heaven and earth derives its name. I pray that out of his glorious riches, he may strengthen you with power through his Spirit in your inner being, so that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith. And I pray that you, being rooted and established in love, may have power, together with all the saints, to grasp how wide and long and high and deep is the love of Christ, and to know this love that surpasses knowledge, that you may be filled to the measure of all the fullness of God. Now, to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us. To him be glory in the church and in Christ Jesus throughout all generations, forever and ever. Amen. Paul, he desperately wants them to understand the love of God. and to understand the power. So it's love and power, more power, period. That always works. The more love in your life, the more power you have, period. Because love is power. God is love. He has all power. When you tap into that love, you have the power to overcome darkness, to overcome sin, to overcome the world. It is only through love, the power of love. He says, if you can grasp that love and the power that is connected to that love, there's nothing that you cannot do. And that was his revelation. And then he says, now he's praying now to him who is able. I mean, the bottom line, when you look at this journey we're going on, is you are going to be putting down some things that are really, really close to your heart, and you're going to be exposed before God. And if you don't really believe he loves you, you're going to have a hard time being intimate with him. I mean, really trusting him. It's going to be very hard if you don't understand the love that he has for you. But if you don't understand that it's about his power and not yours. I tried for so long to overcome things on my own and try to be strong and not allow him to do these things. And I'm still battling things in my life. Shoot, I'm going to share some of them. I'll share a lot of them. But he says he's able to do immeasurably more. I think I told you, I preached this scripture so many times. I mean, this thing in this old beat up Bible, man, that thing's all ripped up. You can tell I preached this a bunch of times, but I never really lived it. It was an awesome passage that I believe in with all my heart. He is able to do immeasurably more, but I've never experienced it. But I'm sure he's able. You ever feel like that? Oh, I believe he's able. He can do all things. Yeah, but can he do your thing? Probably not. Why? Because I have lots of evidence. He hasn't ever done it like that for me. I mean, I get it. Does it for him. Yeah, great stories. I love that. Way to go. But he doesn't do that for me. But he's able. And so you got a problem. There's a conflict there. If he's able to immeasurably more, and he has all power because of his love, then why would you not be a part of that, have access to that power? And why is immeasurably more not there for you and me? It is. I don't think I'd ever really gotten to a place where, I don't know, I'd never really experienced it. So 2020 for all of us was a challenging year. And we didn't know what was coming. You know, we come into the new year and it's 2020. It was like magic, just that number, because it represented the future. You know, I remember in the 90s coming up on 2000, 2020 just sounded like Star Trek, man. And so it was kind of magic, and the ball dropped, and then Kobe died. And it was like, that was one of those just, boom. I mean, hard to accept, because he just, oh my gosh. I mean, that broke my heart. I mean, I miss Kobe. I know y'all do. It's like, I mean, that's how 2020 started. It's just kind of boom, tragedy with somebody that was so beloved, and seeing a family, you know, having to go through that. And then the pandemic started, and then George Floyd died, and then throw in a terrible election, no matter whose side, where you are, and it was the perfect storm. Now, what I didn't know was coming was two of our kids were going to go through two of the toughest times during that year. So we had this little beach place. We decided to stay down there during the pandemic, and like when everything was really quarantined in 2020. And so, because we can both work from anywhere, at least my wife could at the time, and I can. And so we stayed down there for months, and we renovated this place. But what I had was the ocean every single day. And I mean, just miles on that ocean. And it was at cars, reckless, riding with the devil and putting myself in danger and all that. Yeah, that was crazy. But this was different. This was our kids, my 26-year-old and 23, you know, from my previous. And then my wife has two from a previous, right? And so we have four. Two are grown, having grandkids, and then we have two 20-somethings. And so this is my son and my daughter. My daughter went out west And the day she stepped off the plane in Portland, George Floyd died. And those 100 nights when Portland was on fire, my then 20-year-old daughter was right in the middle of it. And we were going through a time where we were not really cool. It was the first time that we had ever not been cool. We were sideways. And that whole time and her being out there that summer, and it brought up so many things inside of her that she was feeling from the past. How long kids, and they were 10 and 7. That affected all of us. And, family was busted apart. And so my sweet little girl, 20 years old, 21 years old, was about to be, she's caught in the middle of that danger. And I can't talk to her. I don't know if she's okay every night because we're not talking. And man, I would walk on that beach and I would just cry. And this is just 2 years ago. And then at the same time, my son, who I'm telling you, we ain't never been sideways. I've got an amazing relationship with my 26-year-old son. It's the kind of thing where he's at a festival this weekend at Shaky Knees, which is this big rock and roll festival. And he ran into 2 guys. They're like and he had to stop and get away from his friends and cover and say, "Pops." And he calls me at a festival just to tell him, "Guess who I just ran into, man? Nick and Nate Diaz." The Diaz brothers, UFC dudes. Well, we're big, And so I love that about me and my boy. I mean, he steps away from his boys to call his dad at a festival to tell him something. I mean, we got it like that. But not then. Because about the time things spun out with my daughter, my son was going to go through the first bout he had ever had with some mental illness. And first it was depression, then it went the other way. And all of a sudden I couldn't talk to my son. And he is going through some serious things. And all I could do was pray. Texting wasn't getting there, calls weren't getting there. They were away from me. And my wife and I were scared to death. And the only thing that you can do is pray. And so I walk on that beach and I'm just like, it's all through. I always do these prayer journals. I've been doing it since 2012. It's the way that I've built everything that I have. The ministry that I have was built through this process. This is how I do it. And so I'm tearing it up and I'm crying snot bubbles. And I'm saying, give me and I pray for signs. Give me a cool shell. Give me something. Let me see bring a seagull over, like right over my head, right? I had show me something. I wrestled with it. And every now and then, this beach doesn't have a lot of shells on it. He'd show me something here or there. I'd find a little something I'd pick up and I'd wink at him and I'd be wiping my eyes off and I'd be going back and hanging out with my wife, trying to get some work done, come back down there, wrestle, crying. And so this one day, man, I'm really scared. Like there's a situation and I know what's happening and I can't get to my boy. And so I'm just like, I'm like, you gotta do something today. I really, really need you to show me something because I'm scared and I don't feel like, I don't know if this is going to be okay. So you got to show me. And I said, I want a shell that's just perfect because they're just not down there. I said, I want something that gets my attention that I know that doesn't make any sense, something like that. And I'm like, here we go. So I start walking, I'm crying. And all of a sudden, I come up to this orange little makeshift barrier, and they were doing some restoration project on up the beach. And so they had this orange barrier, and I would always walk to that barrier and I'd turn around and go the other way. And so this day, it was knocked over. So the wind had blown it down. And I'm like, well, it must not be for me. So I just kept on walking. And so I'm praying. I get to a spot that I've never been before. And all of a sudden I look up and there's a shell. Oh, it's sweet. And I'm like, huh. And I put it in my pocket. And all of a sudden I go, oh my God, there's another one. And I put it in my pocket. And then I'm looking around, there's shells and I'm putting them all in my pockets, but I didn't bring anything. And so I got to walk a mile back to our place. And so I walk and my pants are all filled with these shells. And I get back to the place. I said, baby, give me a bag or give me something, a grocery bag. And so I get a couple of grocery bags and I walk a mile back down there and ain't nobody around. And I pick up and there's just more shells and more shells. And I fill up those 2 bags and I walk a mile back. It's like a workout. And I get all the way back and I say, I got to go back, baby. And so I go and I walk another mile and I fill up my bags and I'm coming back. I do this for 3 days to this spot. And it's like, I mean, you guys don't believe me, so I'm going to show you something in a second. And so finally it got on the 3rd day, I'm like, I've got my bags and I'm walking back and I'm starting to feel bad because there's this older couple and they're walking and they're just looking for shells and they ain't got nothing. They got this little basket and it's just empty. And I got these 2 huge bags of shells. And so when they're walking by, I said, y'all come here. I said, keep walking that way past that little fence, okay? And you're gonna find some. And so they walk off and I go all the way back. The next day I go back and there's all kind of people down there in my spot. And in no time, all of a sudden it was like over. So whatever they were doing to restore that thing had brought up all of this incredible, I'm about to show you. To him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine. All I asked him for was 1 shell. Just give me a shell. Give me a sign. What he gave me was that. Those are actually the shells that I picked up over that 3-day period. They sit in this, these 2 big old things. And so every day we get to see the miracle of the shells. That's what we call it. And this 40-day journey, he's going to, I look at it kind of like this grand game of hide and seek, where he's going to be showing you things. He already knows what you want and how bad you want it and why you want it. And he's already answered the question. He's already answered the prayer. And now it's a matter of leading you to the place. The journey is where the vision, it's like, man, to get to that marriage that you want, that relationship that you want, that job that you want, that diagnosis that you want, that health that you want, that strength of character that you want. It's the journey to get to that thing. It's not just for him to boom and just give it to you. But on this day, I said, you got to show me something. And I'm telling you, I've never seen anything like it. And I'm going to show you what else he can do. If you remember, all I said was, if you ever let me preach the word again, then I'll go to the people that nobody else wants to go to. And that's what I began to do. It all started with a kingdom kid. That's my little brother, Luis. And when I was leading him in the church that we were leading at the time, that's him on the left. And he was like my little brother. He would come up to me after I preached and have things to say. He'd come over to the house every now and then, do some yard work, or we'd, grab a Coke or something. And he was just my little brother. Over on the right side is where he is today. Because I prayed, God, if you ever let me preach again, I'll go to those, the least of these, the harassed and helpless, the hungry, the thirsty, the naked, the stranger, the sick, and the prisoner. And it took 3 years. He didn't answer that. He said yes right away, but it took 3 years to get me in position to be able to handle what he was about to do. And then he brought this kid back into my life, full grown, MS-13, on trial for his life, gang-related murder, potential death penalty. And I began to work with him. That led me to my first prison. And I met this man, and they call him Sir Brown. Sir Brown is one of the most influential men I've ever known. And inside the prison system, not just in Georgia, but definitely all over Georgia, he is a chain gang legend. Everybody knows who he is. He's not a gangster. He's never been affiliated, but they come to him. He mediates, he counsels, he mentors, he helps kids get their GED. When the warden needs peace, he's the one they call. He's got that kind of power. And he and I became brothers. And now, I mean, we're tight. We're like blood. I know his family in Jersey. Man, he and I, we've done a lot of life together. He's doing life without. I believe that one of the biggest miracles I'm ever going to witness is when he comes home. But he's the one that's helped me build this thing. That's when the movement began on June 10th, 2010. I was just going into a prison. I didn't know how dangerous it was. I didn't know how dangerous these guys were. That guy right there is the one who really got things moving. He's a high-ranking gangster disciple, and he wanted to change his life. And there was actually a group of them. And on that day, all those brothers got baptized. And this was when God was leading me to do things that we had never done before. Things that, you know, I mean, baptizing dudes in prisons, maximum security prisons. I mean, these guys, I mean, it was totally out of the box, but I had found this new ministry and I would come alive in a way that I never had. And these were the brothers, Small Toot, Batman, Chewy Garduno, White Boy, Birdie Boy, and Big Mo. This was my church. I wasn't coming to see y'all. I had too much shame, but I would go see them every week and then twice a week. And then I lost 2 jobs over it. I was making pretty good living and I fell in love with these dudes. And I just felt like God was calling me to do it. And so I gave up everything and I started following this crazy dream. And it was because of those guys. That prison, which was the worst in the state of Georgia, that year that we started it, after those brothers got baptized and we started what became our first peace pledge, rival gangs came together for 40 days at a time, and that prison became the safest maximum security prison in the state, and it went from worst to first. So we got prison of the year that year. And then there was a bloody gang war that ripped throughout the state, and it locked this prison down. There were 5 bodies in 6 weeks. And there's going to be times in this prayer journey where you're going to be like, why didn't you do that? Or I got kicked out of Georgia. I mean, I couldn't go in anymore. And this is my family, man. And it's like, they wouldn't let anybody in because it just got too dangerous. They just locked the prison down and everybody was on lockdown for 14 months. I couldn't get in there. And I'm like, why'd you close that door? But what I didn't realize is he's going to open the doors he wants open, but then he's going to close the doors he doesn't want me to go through because I will break down doors and say it was him. And so sometimes he's got to keep closing them and say, son, this is me closing. I want you to go elsewhere. And so what he wanted me to do was go there. And so I got invited to Michigan. And that's our band of brothers at this place called Brooks Correctional, maximum security prison in Michigan. This is where I had to learn how to work with Muslims, because a lot of the brothers in that picture are very powerful Muslim brothers. And if you can't get the Muslims on board, there's no way you can have peace. And see, that's at our graduation celebration where we really started figuring out what we had as Crips and Bloods and GDs and Muslims and Aryan Brotherhood and the Latin gangs all started coming together 40 days at a time. And they were searching for miracles too. And I didn't know it, but magic was happening. So I got called next door and went to Ohio. This is where it became a movement. That's on the second day when we launched it, just like I came and launched with y'all, 40 Days of Prayer. This is where they're doing their pledge, but these are 7 different principles than the ones you're doing. I'll seek first to understand my opponent. I'll find common ground.
Guys, looks like we lost Kit there. We'll wait for him to log back in.
I was rolling. So this is where Hope is the New Dope started with these brothers in Ohio. Then we took it out to Kansas. And if you see, I'm preaching about the brothers, the 8 that got baptized on June the 10th. And they're now inspiring people as far away as Kansas. This is where MS-13 came on board in our first prison, where that was unheard of. Nobody ever works with those guys. 3 Days of Prayer with a bunch of beautiful sisters in the Nebraska Women's Prison. And that's at our celebration where we had certificate. They surprised, well, I surprised them. They snuck me in and hid me in a room, and all the sisters came in. They started telling their miracle prayers that were answered, and I was crying. And then all of a sudden they opened the door and I came because they didn't think I was coming. Is when people distance, but compassion and acceptance, having meaningful discussion, breaking bread together, it's hard to hate him. And so they became friends and everything changed. Then I had to take it to the schools because it was like, well, if it's working in the prisons, what if we start working with the schools and we'll keep some kids out of it? And so we started this thing called Protect the Dream, which was inspired by stuff I did in Tijuana with Jeff Wadstrom, which blew my mind. And so I started this program where we take football players and basketball players and, influencers, and we teach them to be positive role models and not bullies, and how to treat women right and stay away from drugs and alcohol, and really just use their influence for peace. Took it to Ukraine and went into a Ukrainian prison. I was able to fight my way into was prison number 40. So believe it or not, God even set me up with the prison. This guy here, he kept trying to get me to drink vodka, and that's the colonel. And I'd be like, no, I'm good. He'd say, really, vodka? And I'd be like, no, really, I'm good. And he'd say, please respect vodka. And I'm like, please respect. I'm gonna stay here if I drink with you, sir. So it's like, finally they let me go. But no, beautiful people in Ukraine, man. It breaks my heart, what's going on there. I fell in love with that country and those people. All the way down to South Africa, that's a prison called Westfield Prison in Durban, South Africa. And Zulu warriors, man, we danced and we sang. And so these 8 brothers of yours, baptized June 10th, 2010, now they're impacting brothers down in South Africa, all the way down into Honduras. I did 7 prisons in Honduras. These are some of the most dangerous prisons in the world. They don't have any guards. They go back there. And so it's just like, hey, you're back there with the brothers, and good luck with that. And the things I've learned in all the prisons I've been to prepared me to deal with people that don't even speak my language. And there's a power and there's a respect that comes off. It's what you put out is what comes back to you. And if you learn the power of this, and we're going to spend one of our lessons on energy, holy energy, and the way that God, it's just, you're going to live it. I'm teasing it. This is a prison in Tijuana as I begin to wrap up. This is called La Mesa Prison, and that's in 2008 when they set the prison on fire. 5,000 men took for 30 days, and they had to bring in tanks and federales to take the prison back. I actually know the dude that set the fire. He's actually a pretty good dude now. I'm back. There's only a few more. I'm going to try what Johnny said. I'll turn that off.
Okay.
All right. I've only got a few more. So I appreciate your patience. There we go. That was powerful. See, peace is cool all over the world, man. And if you remember, what we're talking about is immeasurably more. All I wanted to do was go and visit a kid on me, even to the streets. This is downtown Atlanta, and these are 5 rival gangs that are marching against police brutality, and I got invited to come and march with them, and so I did, until they started yelling very, very bad things, and then I had to split. And they did the same program that the brothers behind the wire did, but the cops got whipped because I couldn't get them to do the homework. Some of you guys, I'm going to have to keep on you each week. It's like, come on, man, do it. If you really want to change, you got to put in the work. And that's what it was with these beautiful brothers and sisters in blue. And then Benton Harbor, Michigan, toughest school I ever had. And then Selma, Alabama. Look at these young ones. And I'll wrap with this. God said, I'll use the lowly and despised things of this world to shame the wise. We talked about the workers in the field and the ones that got in right before the midnight hour. And I believe that God is doing that because that little band of brothers in that terrible prison where it was on fire, a gang war, they took a stand and got baptized and said, we want, that has spread all around where I just showed you, all the way down to where they're inspiring kids in Selma, Alabama, which is the city that one of my mentors, Martin Luther King Jr., cared about so much. And I've grown so connected to that city. We even took a group of kids all the way to the White House who had never really been out of Atlanta. That's the latest book that tells a lot of these stories and really kind of where all this came from. So I'm going to stop the sharing. I'm going to start my video, and I'm going to wrap by saying this. God is able to do, but here's the key. Don't get attached to the when and the how. Jesus says, what do you want me to do for you? And I want to see. Let him worry about who's to help you see and how soon you're going to be able to have your sight. Don't worry about all the details. Just present your request before God. Resort community.
Hey, Kit, you're chopping up here.
We're coming back
Can you hear
from
us?
where we come back. Her phone is absolutely gone. It's just and somebody had taken her phone. I'm gonna throw it back to you, bro. And Ruben, back to you, buddy.
Hey,
Ruben,
Kit,
back to
can
you,
you hear
man.
me?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm gonna give up on this one.
Okay. Well, Kit, we love you, man. Thank you so much for tonight. I'm so sorry that it sounds like it's a bummer that the internet wasn't working too well over there.
I know. I
But
hope you got. Did you get any of it? Were you able to get any of it?
we got a lot of it, Kit. We got a lot of it. And I really appreciate what you shared. I think that I love the fact that we're talking about how we don't need to worry about the details. God's got the details. We just got to come before Him with full of faith. And so, church, if we can just give some love to Kit here on the chat, I can imagine how challenging it is to try to communicate, and yet it's choppy and stuff like that. So that's a bummer, Kit.
No worries. No worries.
But we'll see you next week as well. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, man. We got what,
Yeah.
5 more left. But
Yeah.
the next ones, I'll be in my office.
Nice.
I'll be next secure. Everything will be great.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, kid.
It's
We
all
love
yours,
you,
brother.
man.
All yours.
Looking forward to next week.